Welcome to Three Thoughts On. Thank you, everyone that's watching online, and thank you all that you're here live with us. Greatly appreciate it. This is our first podcast of the year, and I couldn't be happier for the guest that I am honored to have here, Jacobo, Hincapie-Echeverri. How are you today?
Good, very good. And you?
Doing well, thank you. First off, always thanking Nona Media and Lake Nona and Juan Santos and Reese for allowing us to do this the way that we do it and give us the freedom to be able to use the space and the equipment to be able to do this and share it with you. Today we're going to have a conversation of a very important topic regarding health. We're going to touch on a number of different things from aging, cancer, gut biome, and a few more. But before we get into that, I'd like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and share with the folks online and here, who are you and how did you end up doing what you're doing today?
Well, it's a long story. First of all, thank you for having me, Rafael. This is an honor for me to be here. So who I am? So my name is Jacobo Hincapie, or Jacob Hincapie, as people in the United States they know me better. So I am a physician. I was graduated from the University of Caldas in Manizales, Colombia. Then I inspired by my attending physicians there, role models that they became that kind of physician that you want to be in the future. So one day I wanted to be an internist. So after years passed, I was a cruise ship physician for many years, then studied for the boards in the United States, and I managed to be accepted into the residency in internal medicine in New York. Then I became a geriatrician at Harvard Medical School. Then I did palliative care, and finally my goal in life was to close that circle, because as much as I was studying and learning about aging and about how the process for you to age, I realized that the circle would be completed as long as I would be an oncologist. So then I was an attending and I was a professor of medicine for several years at the University of Florida. I was a researcher in microbiota, in aging, and so on. And then the opportunity to become an oncologist was passing by in front of my life, and I took it. I became an oncologist, and currently I am a GI oncology specialist and geriatric oncology specialist here in Orlando. And that's who I am in a lot of, too long time, but just, trying to make it in a few words.
That's a lot of studying, a lot of classes.
Tell me about it.
That is interesting. I can appreciate your journey because of, you mentioned palliative care, right?
Yes.
Palliative care, taking care of people that are at their last stage of life.
Correct.
I mean, you and I have discussed, my mother passed away a couple of years ago of cancer, and we had to go through that process, and you learn a lot about the human condition when a human is getting to that stage in their lives, and we just basically have to wait, right? So I'm sure that had an impact on you and in trying to then bridge that circle or complete that circle.
Absolutely. And Rafael, even though I've been practicing this for several years, still, every single day when I have to deliver the news to somebody, it's a hit on you, right? And then you never learn completely. Every single day you keep on learning and you keep on being affected by the sufferment of the humanity. And one of the examples was, for example, in December 25th, I have to say bye to a dear patient of mine. He was only 23 years old, 23. And you realize like nobody should die at that age, right? But regardless, so you have to continue.
Yeah, no, I can sympathize with that. Let's take that as a starting point for our conversation, because I want to touch on all these points. Let's start with aging.
Yes.
Can you help us define, based on what modern science does today, what is aging and why do we age?
Wow, what a question. So aging, the definition as we get it in from the books or from the official sources, is an irreversible process where all the cells in your organism starts to decline in terms of the function And the cells, they have either three options. One, which is dividing. Another one, which is senescence, which in other words means getting old and losing the function. And third, a cell that is not dividing or is dividing in an abnormal way, which means cancer, right? But nowadays, with the new development of the modern era of medicine, aging is changing, and the definition is changing as well. So I remember when I was a child or when I was a teenager, for me, somebody in the 60s was already an old person, right? But now, 60s is the new 40s. People, as long as the time goes by, they are living longer and longer and longer. But very important, a differentiation in two concepts here. What is lifespan and what is health span? Lifespan is basically how long you're going to live. But health span is how long you're going to be in good shape, in good conditions, and how long you're going to stay sick before you pass away, right? And this is the first concept that I have in my mind and that I mention to my students and during all my conferences. I would like to die younger, very young, but the latest possible. That's pretty much like summarizing everything that I just mentioned there. So going back into the current definition of aging, so the first question that I ask myself, is it true that you are going to be able to go back in age and make yourself younger? Or is just a matter to slow down the process of aging? Time is going to tell us, because studies in regards of aging in humans, they are quite difficult to do. You would need maybe 80 years and make a cohort of people like these people were intervened with this and this and this and this kind of supplements or these kind of interventions versus other people who didn't do anything in particular, but that takes time. So the closest that we have for that kind of studies is mice. When I was at the University of Florida, we were able to treat, or deal with a lot of mice and rats because the lifespan for them is about like 3 years. But in terms of the genetics, we are only different in about like 3% of our genetics. At the end of the day, the biology of the mammals is the same, right? So again, the definition of aging at this point is changing, certainly, because probably in the future, we are going to be able to go back in the process of aging, or at least slowing down in a remarkable way.
And it seems like the research is converging, right? You have people like David Sinclair, who's done a lot of work, first with yeast and then with mice, but then we're still missing that last piece, right? Which is with humans, like you said, it's very complicated,
right?
Because you need a large sample, you need a long time, and that creates a little bit of a time roadblock to be able to start seeing those results. And one thing that makes me happy is that at least in the last 20 years, when you've seen some of the research that these folks are doing, some of the stuff that you're doing, it seems to have started this way, but it's starting to converge. Absolutely. More people are starting to agree with this definition of aging, which is basically worrying about function, right? Worrying about not necessarily the number of years, but the number of years where I can be active. And I think we can all see that a little bit. I mean, I see it in myself. I'm 53, and I remember when my parents...
You don't look like, by the way.
I'm a little lucky there on that. But I remember when my parents were my age.
Yes.
And, nothing wrong with them, but that they were already done. They weren't very active, and they weren't looking to be active because the mentality was like, I'm retiring soon and this is it.
Right.
And I'm just succumbing to the process, and I'm just waiting for when death is going to come and get me. And I'm happy to see that, through the work that people like you and many others are doing, we're starting to see that difference between health and lifespan. So given that, you mentioned the new changing and evolving definition of aging, you also mentioned these three things that our body cells can do, right? Which is, split, right? Become senescent, or the zombie cells, as they call them too, senescent cells or zombie cells. And then replicate in an inappropriate way,
Yes.
right? Which is what we call cancer. Let's talk about that for a moment, because you hear people talk about we should find a cure for cancer.
Yes.
And
What a
there's a lot of conversations and conspiracies. And you know me, I'm not a conspiracist. I like hard facts, hard science. And I know that science is a process, and that we can, science is the only thing that I know that continues to question itself. And that's why we progress. It's a process, not a destination. So what do you say to people when we talk about cancer, and how do we, quote unquote, cure it?
Let's just start by the definition of cancer. So cancer is the abnormal division of cells. Therefore, cancer is a genetic disease, but not necessarily that is inheritable. So not necessarily that you're condemned to have cancer just because somebody in your family had cancer before, but definitely it's a genetic disease. Why? Because for any cell to divide in an abnormal way, something has to happen within the nuclei, within the DNA of that particular cell, to produce something abnormal. Now, speaking about cancer, there is no cancer. There are cancers with a huge S at the end. Why cancers? First of all, the cancer is produced by different tissues. It's produced in different situations, by different causes. And at the same time, when you get a tissue, for example, from breast cancer, you cannot compare two different tumors, even though they are breast cancer, because they express different proteins or different molecules in the surface of the cell. Therefore, the cancer is not a cancer, it's what type of cancer are you talking about? If we are looking for a possible cure, which, by the way, nowadays, in the 21st century, is the best time ever in history that any person with the disease can achieve a cure. The current research that we have every single day is fantastic. And what is happening today in terms of the overall survival, or the progression-free survival, which means how long does the patient live with the disease without the next progression of the disease, is absolutely outrageous. So the research that has been published within the last 3 or 4 years, if you are going to be able to read it all, you will need 100 years to be able to read every single article that is coming up within this little time frame, So these patients nowadays, I am happy to say that I have many patients that they've been cured of the disease, and I have to say that I was part of that by delivering science to them.
Well, that's wonderful. So I like what you said about cancers in plural,
Yes.
right? Because it's almost analogous to influenza, right? There's different kinds of them. There's different types of, different variations of a virus, but it impacts people different, right? And that's why, one particular treatment may work for the same quote-unquote type of cancer, may work one way for one patient, but it work differently for another patient. Absolutely. And it has to do with that, genetic DNA, up and down regulation of the genes, correct?
You're touching a very important topic, genes. What is a gene? So a gene is a compound, or is a mix of amino acids, right? That they create proteins in particular, and a protein that get together with another one and creates the opportunity to make another protein. So basically that's a gene. It's a triplet or more bases of proteins that they have a function. Genes in the past, we were thinking like a gene can be turned on or turned off. Nowadays we understand that they are dimmable. In other words, when you have the light at home and you don't want to have too much light, so then you just put it down a little bit, but the light is still there, right? So you never lose your genes. What happens is, like, even though you have the gene probably right there, but it's not causing the effect that it was supposed to produce. By generations, for example, when you have a family who are not drinking milk, because since probably the last couple decades, these patients, they are becoming lactose intolerant. Are you really intolerant to the lactose? Or maybe you don't have the gene anymore expressed because your family or even yourself, you were not exposed to the lactose. And then that gene got turned down a little bit. At the same time, if you are not exposed to certain meals or certain foods, your bacteria in your intestines are going to start changing. So the next time that you're going to be exposed to that particular food, you're going to have distension, you're going to have problems, and then you become intolerant. Back in the day, the lactose intolerance or many intolerances that we have nowadays, they didn't exist. So it is what we call an epigenetic change, which means it's a change in your genes related to the habits that you have, or even that is inherited because it's kind of like evolution within that particular cohort of people.
So let me make a statement here just to try to expand on that for the audience, and you tell me if I am in the right on track or if I'm completely lost. So when we talk about genes and genetics and epigenetics, it's equivalent to saying the genes load the gun.
Yes.
But the epigenetics actually pull the trigger. And the epigenetics is the environment we choose to live in. Sometimes we don't have a choice because we don't choose where we're born. We don't choose, where our parents and how our parents have the ability to raise us. But it is that environment that then upward regulate or downward regulate, which is what you're talking about, dimming, right? So for a particular genetic expression, it may or may not manifest itself as a function of how I live physically and mentally.
Yes, I completely agree. If you pay attention and you compare people who were born in different socioeconomic situations, it's very simple or very easy to compare which people they have better opportunities. And unfortunately, once you have different locations where you were born and different socioeconomic situations, the bacteria in your intestine is different. And therefore, changes in your brain are going to happen, changes in your muscles. And even more important than that, women, when a woman is pregnant, the microbiota changes, and changes based on where she lives, the stress that she's going through, and as well as what kind of food or what kind of illness that she's having during that particular period of time. So everything that happens when you are in the womb is going to affect definitely your future. And another point, very important, how you were born, C-section, natural delivery, where you were born, were you breastfed or not. So everything is going to affect your life. Why is that? When your mother were having, during the period of the delivery, bacteria in the vaginal canal is different for a period of 6 hours. And that's the first gift from life. There is one particular bacteria that they are right there. One is the Bifidobacterium infantis, and the other one is the Bifidobacterium lactis. During that period, when the baby is going through, is impregnated by that bacteria, is going to be swallowed. Even the womb, even the amniotic liquid is full of bacteria, but now we are just realizing how important that is. So those particular two bacteria, they become kind of like the director of the orchestra of your life. They're going to organize the rest of the populations of the bacteria, which that word is very important, population of bacteria. There is no wrong or bad bacteria. It's what is the proportion of bacteria that you are getting along the way and how you are going to keep it or destroy it according to your habits. So if you compare two children, one who was born by regular delivery, or another one who was born by C-section, technically the one who was born by C-section is more prone for allergies or other diseases than the other one. Why? Because he's missing that particular gift from life, which is that going through the delivery canal.
Very interesting. So then after that process, so we're going way back, right? We're going way back into, the birthing process, and then the baby's out, and now he or she is exposed, the baby's exposed now to the environment itself, right? And how stressful it is or not stressful, right? Yeah. And the type of foods that are available.
Yes.
And now this orchestration process that you talk about with the different bacteria starts its thing to then decide, or not decide, but influence, probably a better word, what the genes are going to do and when.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. When you were a child, you and I, we are immigrants in the United States. By being an Hispano-American, we were able to be exposed to absolutely everything. We were playing on the soil, we were playing on the ground, our mothers, I remember my mom saying, like, look how you're coming back here, completely dirty all over. But nowadays, many mothers, they are super cleaning everything. And that is affecting these children. Why? Because remember, you have two shields where you are exposing to the environment. One is your skin, and second is your gastrointestinal tract. How many times were you picking up something from the ground, something that fell here, and then you say, and you still eat it?
5-second rule, right?
Exactly, the 5-second rule, remember that? So, did something happen to you? Nothing, right? But the only thing that you did is just creating more antibodies, exposing yourself against antigens that they were in the environment, and then you will be protected in the future. How many children nowadays, they have multiple allergies and multiple problems just because of that? Fortunately, at this point, now we are realizing how important it is to be in a good relation, not only with the bacteria that you carry inside your intestines or in your skin, etc., but we are in an environment which is colonized everywhere.
So let's zoom into that. Let's fast forward to now. There's you have a young adult or somebody our age, and the importance of that gut biome health. I was talking to my friend Greg earlier about that second brain, right? That people talk about, that there's all kinds of things going on, not only biologically but sensorially, right, within the biome, and we're learning now that it is a very fragile ecosystem.
I love that word.
Right? Ecosystem. It is very fragile. It's like one cell thickness, right, between the population of bacteria and then the outside of that environment, and how much it matters what we choose to consume, as far as food, and also how much it matters the type of lifestyle that we have for the health. Can you zoom in on that? And first of all, is that correct? And if so?
Yes. Well, you touch a lot of topics at the same time. So let's start by this. If you thought that you were a human being, let me change it. I'm sorry, you're a bunch of bacteria with a little bit of human. Why do I say that? We have 30 billion cells in our bodies, but we carry about 50 billion cells related to bacteria. And what is the microbiome? Microbiome is every single cell that is colonizing your body, from the skin, the respiratory tract, the gastrointestinal tract, everywhere. If you compare how many genes you have as a human versus the bacterial genes that you carry, I'm sorry, but you have 20 times more genes related to bacteria than humans. So we are a bunch of bacteria just with a little bit of human. Now, going back into how important that is. The relationship between humans or any mammal, as the biology as we know it in this planet, has been going on for millions of years. So this is a symbiotic relationship between bacteria and us. Now we are getting to the point that bacteria, we are identifying how specific strains of bacteria, they are related to specific effects in your body, and how these bacteria, they might be related or they might be the cause for problems. For example, epilepsy, or maybe part of the treatment, Alzheimer's disease. And this is very interesting. There is a study where they took mice with Alzheimer's and they put it next to mice which they were in good shape, right? Turns out like the mice who were in good shape, they started to learn to make the other mice to look better and to improve the cognition. And if you pay attention nowadays in the nursing homes, when you have somebody with Alzheimer's versus somebody which is normal, the person who was normal or with better cognition starts to decline. And this is a very important thing. People or every creature who's living in the same household, we start sharing our microbiota, our bacteria, including the pets, dogs, cats, humans, everything. Why? Because we hug, we touch, we eat from the same cutlery, we touch our dogs, etc., etc. So the same phenomena seems like it's happening in those scenarios. Now, speaking about how important the microbiota is according to which organ we are going to discuss. So let's start, let's say, by the muscles. Fantastic topic, very important, because the muscles, we thought that the muscles is just a locomotion organ, but no, it's more than that. It's an endocrine organ. It produces a lot of molecules, produces myokines. When you go to the gym, for example, and you feel like you're sore all over, still you go to the gym the following day, right? But it's a pain. But that particular molecule is causing that you release endorphins, encephalins, and all these molecules that make you feel better. It's what I call like the endogenous morphine. How that happens? In your bacteria, in your colon, you are able to produce what we call the branched amino acids, which they are essential amino acids. In other words, you are not able to produce them. They have to come either from the food or you produce them bad because of the bacteria. These amino acids, they go into the circulation, bypassing the liver, and they go straight to the muscles. And that's part of the food. Now, if you see somebody which they are very thin and they are not able to keep up with the muscle mass as they should, technically they have a problem within the microbiota, inside the intestines. We were told that as much as we grow older, the muscle should be getting less and less and less. That is not true. When you are losing muscle, you are in deep trouble. You are sick. Something is going on within your body. And that is something that I always convey to all my patients. Move, move, move. Even patients who are dealing with cancers or even with the stage 4 diseases, there are many studies nowadays that they are proving how these patients, they live even longer when they are moving because there is a lot of new molecules and decrease of inflammation and redirection of the immune system towards the cancer, to fighting the cancer. So muscle is a very important issue that we have to keep at all times, and you start keeping your muscles at age 26. Did you know that?
No,
so,
I didn't.
Men, we reach the maximum level of our capacity to function at age 26. Women, you're a little bit more lucky. So age 20, 30, 32. That's the maximum level of when you reach the maximum level. Then the decline starts. So when do we start talking about aging? At what age do we start getting old? What do you think, Rafa?
Well, after we reach that peak, right?
You got it. So the most common misconception is like we are getting old after age 65. That is not true. You're starting getting old technically from the moment that you were born, because with the first inhalation of oxygen, you're causing oxidative stress. Now, how you handle the oxidative stress, that's a different story, right? So going back into which organs, let's go to the brain. One of the most precious things that we have in our bodies is the self-recognition. And for me, the Alzheimer's disease is the worst disease that you can imagine. Why is that? Because once you lose the capacity for you to recognize yourself, you're not there anymore. Rafael and I, we are discussing here, not because we have a couple entities or bodies discussing here. No, it's because we have couple brains that they are interacting to each other. But once you lose that capacity, then it's not Rafael, it's not Jacob. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Bacteria from your microbiota, now it is recognized to produce fatty acids of short chain fatty acids, that they are going to the brain and they are going to control even the cholesterol and modulating the capacity for that brain to be able to keep up with the cognitive issues that they are coming along the way. Of course, when we are discussing about stress situations or people who are dealing with a lot of problems in life, of course, the cognition is less. And it's related to the increase of cortisol that is keeping in a high level at all times. But it is not only there. Cortisol is the cause for cardiovascular problems, even cancers, insulin resistance, and so on and so forth. And the more cortisol that you keep in your body, the more affected your microbiota will be. So everything is kind of like a circle. It's a 360 degrees of problems that they are interconnected to each other, because once you have, it's like a domino effect. Once you have a problem with your microbiota, multiple issues are going to happen. So it is very important to keep in a good shape the largest organ in your body, which is the microbiota. Let's talk about cardiovascular health. It is very important, and for me, more than walking 20 miles a day, it's more important how fit you're going to be and how muscular you're going to be in the middle age. That is related to how long you're going to live and how you're going to be able to protect yourself from falls and to protect your heart. The longer that you're able to keep up with the capacity to work out at least every day for 30 minutes, including exercise, not only cardiovascular, but weights, it is going to be related to a longer survival, and that is completely proved that nowadays. Speaking about hematology, where is the house where all the stem cells are coming from? Most of them, they come from your bone marrow. Going back into the muscle a little bit, the stem cell for the muscle is called the star cell, or satellite cells. So these satellite cells, nobody knows where they're coming from until now, because now we know that they are coming from the bone marrow. And you're going to say, like, wait a minute, a muscle is coming from the bone marrow? Yeah, because likely we have a good relation between the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and so on, and as well as the production of your muscles. As much as you grow older, you have a higher risk for infections, but it is not necessarily the truth. The way as you keep up with a good microbiota, modulating the immune system, and being able to keep up with a little bit more with those stem cells, you may be able to keep up with all the needs and defend yourself against many other problems, including infections or including anemias, et cetera, et cetera.
So let's zoom in there for a minute. I like to leave always the audience with action items, right, of things to do, right? When we talk about the microbiota, these days we can find information about it, and now we're talking about prebiotics and probiotics, and we're talking about gut health and how proper gut health can actually affect the hormonal balance because of how it triggers, different parts of the brain to be able to regulate some of the important hormones like oxytocin, serotonin, and so forth. But I'd like you to touch, quickly on what, in addition to exercise, in addition to sleep, quality and quantity of sleep, what are the things that when it comes to the foods that we eat that we need in order to keep that gut biome healthy?
Wonderful question. Basically, it's a large topic, but at the same time, it's very simple. Real food. Real food.
Real food.
That's it, right? So if you are going to the grocery store and you get any package and you flip it and you're not able to read the ingredient, put it back. Because that is not real food. If you open something here and you can leave it over this table and coming back in 1 week and still you can eat it, don't eat it. That's a lot of chemicals right there that they're gonna hurt your microbiota. So nowadays, it is important to keep up there are foods that they are for you and foods for your microbiota. For instance, a lettuce. Is a lettuce going to do something for you in terms of calories? No, but your microbiota are going to say, thank you very much, Rafael. You are taking care of me. In my opinion, and what I recommend to all my patients, is the Mediterranean diet. Why Mediterranean diet? Mediterranean diet is based on plants, right? But you never seen, when you go to the Italy or Egypt or any of those countries, you never seen that when you sit at a restaurant, nobody's going to throw their ranch or Thousand Islands or French, this kind of dressings, right? The only thing that they're going to use is vinegar, olive oil, period. Because olive oil nowadays is like the liquid gold. It is taking care of all your microbiota, it's taking care of your arteries, it's taking care of your brain, et cetera, et cetera. When we talk about sources of protein, I don't have any problem with the meat. The problem is how much are you eating, how you cook it, and what kind of meat. Recently, I made a video in my social media speaking about the meat itself. And when you go to a restaurant and the most tasteful meats are those where they are infiltrated by fat, right? Because it's softer, it's more delicious, etc.
Juicy.
It's juicy and it's better, right? It tastes very good. But at the same time, what you're looking at in that particular meat that is infiltrated by fat is exactly what is happening in your own body. You are creating yourself in a sarcopenic obesity. For the audience, sarcopenia means losing muscle. So if you have a proportion that is more fat than muscle, that still is sarcopenia. You're losing muscle even though you look bigger. So in those scenarios, when you are choosing the type of protein that you're going to eat, I recommend any protein that is lean, of course, and in terms of the red meats, and ideally not to have any direct flame with the tissue, with the meat. Why? Because you are creating burns in that tissue, you are eating dead tissue, and then those genes, they're going to talk to your microbiota. You are destroying your microbiota. Those genes are going to talk to your genes, and then you're promoting cancers. Fish. Everywhere in the world, we are able to get fish. But now, unfortunately, there is a big issue going on, which is the mercurium, and as well as the microplastics. Time is going to tell us. Nowadays, we've been able to identify microplastics even in myocardial infarctions. How plastics go into the arteries? That's a wonderful question. Likely, we are exposed to all those molecules every time when they put it in the microwave, or when they are cooking, even with utensils, that they are just releasing small amounts of plastics. And if you pay attention, whenever you go to the grocery store, everything is packed in plastics. To what extent our food is getting contaminated by that? So I'm not quite sure. It's just a hypothesis that I have in my mind thinking about that. In terms of the diet also, it's very important for you to get fermented foods. It's a key factor for you to take care of your bacteria. Kimchi, kombucha, chucrut, Greek yogurt, plain, of course, right?
Without the sugar, yeah.
No, sugar shouldn't be there. All these type of foods, they create bacteria for you right there from the outside, and then you are just getting the gift from life, from the evolution, to get into your intestines for you to improve your health by all means. In terms of I just mentioned something that is very important, plain. And let's talk about it a little bit about sugars. When you listen to people out there, they mention like sugar feeds cancer. Well, in a way, but not exactly. So what happens when you have extra sugars running in your system? Not only you are just changing populations of bacteria in your intestine, but imagine like we are within the intestine. We are within our own intestines. And behind this wall, which is the place where the absorption happens, behind there, they are the boot camps where the immune system trains. They are called Peyer plaques. 90% of our immune system resides right there, behind this wall. As we are bacteria, we talk to each other because we have genes. And that's the beginning of the epigenetic changes. If you are eating the right way, at a certain point, every single food that you are eating was alive. Make sense? Mm-hmm. If you are eating right food. It was a plant, it was an animal. There is nothing else that we eat, right? Once you have sugar coming in here, these bacteria, they get all over the place, and the immune system right there behind this wall is creating an alert. Another example, and this hurts me when I see friends of mine giving cereal or juices to children in the morning. It's exactly like creating a huge emergency system just for that kid early in the morning, and you think that you're doing good because you are just giving juice to the child because it's natural. Nothing more wrong than that. Juices are fructose and are a lot of different sugars that they are just going to create spikes of insulin. When you have a huge spike of insulin, it's an emergency system that is putting right there in alert. The immune system right here is going to be all over the place, and then they are going to start looking kind of like, where? What is the problem? Where should I go? And then when we go back a little bit into the three only options that we have in our cells, either division, senescence, or bad division, which is cancer. So the immune system is not going to be able to recognize where the problem is, and that's what cancer happens. So yes, sugar, does it feed cancer? Not exactly, but makes the situation bad in terms of the inflammation not being able, a chronic inflammatory problem not being able to recognize where the cancer happens? Yes. So that's very important. So in other words, or to summarize that particular topic, for you to take care of your microbiota, real food, that's it. It's simple, right? Real food and fermented foods. Try to stay away of the sugars, especially refined sugars. And that's simple in a way, but I mean, it can be more complicated than that, but just for the sake of the time, so it's a good way to define it.
You know, everything seems to have processed sugar in it, you know, from bread to ketchup to everything we are exposed to. So wanted to kind of start putting everything together, you know, because otherwise we're going to be here all night, which is a wonderful topic. So we've talked about the aging process. We've talked about how our genes get, you know, upward or downward regulated by the ecosystem that we choose to live in. which is a function of the quality of sleep, quality and quantity of sleep, which in itself is a topic on its own, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Exercise and movement, right? And then our mental health, which is in itself also another topic, and then the foods that we choose to eat, right? So all of that plays a role in creating an ecosystem that is conducive to healing, because at the end, that's what we want, right? We want our body to be in a state where it can heal itself,
Absolutely.
right? And we do that by being responsible consumers of what we eat. And I love what you said, by the way. I know, in fact, I have an old acquaintance who wouldn't eat lettuce because said that's just water, right? Well, that couldn't be farther from the truth, right? Because it is actually, there's fiber in it that the body, like you said, the biota actually can use that. It may not be very heavy in calories,
Right.
but it's very useful to creating the creation process of this ecosystem that then keeps the immune system not in alert.
And remember, your microbiota gets fed by undigested fibers. So you get food that you're not going to digest, but you're providing food to your microbiota. So remember, microbiota is the largest organ in your body. It's not defined as an organ nowadays, but eventually it is, because now every single function in your body is related to how healthy you are within your guts.
Very interesting. So I want to make some time, for anybody that has any questions. I mean, I do have questions, but want to open the floor. I know you had a question earlier. Anybody, any questions for Dr. Jacobo? You're all being very shy. It's the first Friday of the year.
First Friday, yeah.
First Friday of the year. So let me ask you this. Regarding the, it seems like the Greeks were onto something, right? Hippocrates, when he said, let your food be your medicine.
Absolutely.
Right? Amazing that 3,000 years later, we still haven't, choose not to live according to that very simple mandate. But at the end of the day, it becomes a matter of access too, right? And it will be very nice if you can go to a supermarket, like you said, and most of the stuff was actually healthy. But the reality is that it's the other way around.
Correct.
So as you go through this process of choosing, I mean, the whole process of actually reading everything and, and trying to understand what's in everything, it can be overwhelming.
Absolutely.
It can be overwhelming. On top of that, we have a society that is very focused on alcohol. We love alcohol. I love it, but more and more studies are showing that there's nothing good about it. And not only because of the inflammation that it can cause, but also because it damages the gut biome, right? So what do you if you tell the average person, you know what, you can't drink, you can't eat the stuff that you like, you gotta eat all this stuff that's at one point was alive, right? You gotta move every day at least 30 minutes. And by the way, it's not just movement, it's actually lifting
something.
Weights, right? You gotta, don't be going to sleep at midnight, right? Go to sleep a little earlier, right?
Especially
and get up early.
If you're an oncologist.
Exactly, right? So, you're making it, we're making it impossible for the current society.
Right.
And the pressures that we have. What do you do? Give us a little bit of hope that maybe is there a way to enjoy some of the things that, we know may not be the best for us, but find some sort of balance?
I agree. So let's dissect it a little bit. So for the sake of the food, once again, when you go to the grocery store, it's simple. Go to the produce section. Everything there is real food. I'm not talking about organic yet, okay? Mm-hmm. I was talking to a friend of mine who's an entomologist, and she was able to mention, for us to really make something organic is almost impossible. So to what extent what you are paying for is really organic, I don't know. I have my questions about that. But in terms of how you are going to eat, So go to the produce section, go to the actual meat section. Not necessarily if you go by choose, if you choose to go by choice, if you go to the area where the pizzas are, well, it's your decision, right? You can do it, right? You're going to tell me, but I want to have a pizza here and there. Of course, right? I do it. Everybody does it, right? What you never see me doing is eating a hot dog or a hamburger or something like that, right? And actually, with my wife, we try to do is pizzas at home, right? We know that is better made, so be creative, right? And nowadays, as when you are looking and scrolling in Instagram, it's the same what you eat, is the same what you put in your mind, right? What you choose, what kind of content you're gonna get in your mind, you choose what kind of food you're gonna get in your system, right? Speaking about alcohol, there is not true that is any alcohol that is good. There is no wine that is good for you. Actually, one of the components that was sold in the past about the longevity was the resveratrol. Well, nobody knows what is the right dose of the resveratrol. Nobody knows in reality if the resveratrol is going to go into the inside the cell and going into the sirtuins and going into the mitochondria, et cetera, it's quite difficult. And let me tell you, before you get any effect beneficial from the wine, you're going to die because of cirrhosis, because of that. So if you're going to drink wine, it's because you like it, it's because you're going to enjoy a glass of wine with a friend, with your wife, or with whoever, but not necessarily because you are believing yourself that you're doing something good for yourself. Forget about it. So every single drop of alcohol that you're drinking, you're just loading the gun and you're doing microbiota, I hate you. Done. Simple as that. Now, if you're talking to me, Jacob, do you drink any alcohol? Yes, I love scotch. I drank some scotch with you, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So, but it's not something that happens every single day. So, of course, keeping the balance is absolutely right. But keep out of your minds that you're doing anything good by drinking alcohol. Same as smoking, same as I don't care if it's marijuana or anything like that. Of course, everything that is combustion that you're putting in your system is bad. Not to say the changes that you're creating with possible depression or psychosis, stuff like that. I'm going to mention something here like the Stoics. Stoicism is based on living your life every single day, and I apply it every single day in my life because of my job and because of the man that I am today. So live every single day as it was the last one. Just be grateful for every single thing that happens in your life. Just enjoy every single color, every single conversation, every hug. Don't go to bed by just having any regrets about something that happened during your life during that particular day. Life is too short. Enjoy it. But enjoy it thinking like, yes, today is a good day, but eventually you will become 100 years old. And you want to be a good 100-year-old and not somebody who's going to be dependent upon somebody else to do everything for you. So remember the concept. One thing is lifespan, and another thing is health span. And I want to die young, but the latest possible.
I love how you did that. That's a great way to wrap everything and put it all together. You're talking about the Stoics. I'm a big fan of Marcus Aurelius,
Me too.
Who was a student of Aristotle, who was a student of Plato, who was a student of Socrates. It goes back to the Greeks, right? They weren't perfect, but they had a lot of really good stuff, figured out. Jacobo, unless anybody has any questions for Jacobo, I want to thank you.
No, thank you for having me.
We could have done another hour.
Absolutely.
Talking about more stuff. So maybe you can come back in the future and we can continue this conversation. You can share. I'm fascinated by what you said about the volume of data that is, of peer-reviewed scientific data that is coming out on a daily basis. It's impossible to keep up, but hopefully with some, innovation in AI, we can all benefit from all those studies, because that is really what's making a difference in my life,
Mine
in
too.
the way that I approach my life, and the way that I consume data, and how that allows me to then try to take a little bit better care of myself. So I want to thank you for being here and for the work you do. And thank you everybody that's watching online. We're going to be doing another one of these in a couple of weeks. And thank you for those of you who made the long drive to be here with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.